Derek prides himself on the strength of his leg. But the muscle that really keeps him going is his heart. About the size of a fist, it's the engine that drives the circulatory system. It contracts and relaxes constantly without any thought on Derek's part at all. Over the course of his life, this tireless pump will beat over 2 billion times. And while Derek's heart beats about 72 times per minute at rest, during a long-distance run, his heart rate increases dramatically.
Phew! Why does it have to work so much harder?
It's the mystery of the missing heart rate. To solve it, we have to take a closer look at the heart and its vast network of blood vessels. A thick wall divides your heart into two halves. The right side gets oxygen-poor blood from the body and pumps it to the lungs to pick up fresh oxygen. The left side of the heart gets oxygen-rich blood from the lungs and pumps it to the entire body.
Here's a good way to remember your right from your left. Blood leaving from the left has really left. It's got a long ways to go. But blood leaving from the right will be right back. After all, it only went to the lungs.
Each side of the heart is also divided in two, creating 4 chambers in all. The left atrium and left ventricle, and the right atrium and right ventricle. Like doors between rooms, sturdy valves separate the chambers. Blood pushes against them, forcing them open and closed. The valves keep the blood traveling in one direction, from the atrium and into the ventricle and out of the heart.
The opening and closing of the valves is what makes that love-dove sound in your heart, better known as your heartbeat. It's what doctors hear when they listen to your chest with a stethoscope.
The vessels leading out of the heart are arteries. The biggest ones, the aorta and the pulmonary artery, are about as thick as your thumb. Strong and elastic, healthy arteries stretch whenever your ventricles pump blood into them, and then spring back between beats.
How can you check the beating of your heart without using a stethoscope? By taking your pulse.
Your pulse is the throbbing of your arteries caused by the beating of your heart. To find your pulse, you have to locate an artery. The easiest one to find is in your wrist. Use your index and middle finger of one hand and gently press them against the outer edge of the inside of your other wrist near the bottom of your hand. You should be able to feel the throb of your heart beating as it pumps blood through that artery. Now, have someone time you while you count the number of beats you feel in 10 seconds. Write this number down in your notebook, multiply by 6, and that's your heart rate.
When you're resting, your pulse should be somewhere between 60 and 100, depending on your age and physical fitness level.
Now, let's see what happens to your heart rate when you work your body a bit. Exercise for about 1 minute by running in place or doing jumping jacks. Now, check your pulse rate again. You'll find that your heart rate is now much higher than it was when you were at rest.
That's because your cells burn more oxygen when you're active, so your heart has to pump faster to keep up with the demand. Hey! The faster Derek runs, the more quickly his cells use oxygen. His heart has to pump harder and faster to keep up with the demand. Finally, we've cracked the case of the increasing heart rate.
That's right. And the stronger your heart is, the more efficiently it can do the job. So it pays to keep your heart healthy.
Hang on to your history books. Here comes a body blast from the past.
Whenever you're doing any kind of activity, like running, jumping, or even just playing a video game, your heart is always working. It constantly has to circulate your blood throughout your entire body, and that is no small task. A good way to find out how well your heart and arteries are doing their job is by checking your blood pressure.
Thank goodness for man's best friend. A dog helped pave the way to a better understanding of blood pressure. Early in the 20th century, Russian doctor Nikolai Korotkov was performing experimental surgery on a canine patient. As he removed the tourniquet, He noticed a force at work as the dog's heart was beating. The force of the blood flowing against the artery walls created pressure. The pressure was greater when the ventricles contracted and blood surged into the arteries. The pressure was less in between these when the ventricles relaxed. In 1905, Korotkov published his findings and applied them to people. Many folks back then thought he was crazy, but today everyone uses his method.
One of Korotkov's biggest contributions to science was his invention of the blood pressure cuff. It represents blood pressure as one number over another. The first number of a blood pressure reading represents the maximum pressure caused by the surge of blood from the contracting ventricles. The second number represents the reduced pressure when the ventricles relax. Arteries are the superhighways of the circulatory system, but like highways that branch into smaller side roads, arteries get tinier and tinier as they spread out. Finally, they turn into the footpaths of the system, the capillaries. Reaching even the most remote parts of the body, some capillaries are so narrow that only one blood cell can pass through at a time.
Artery walls are multi-layered and muscular, but capillary walls are single-layered and thin. Oxygen, other nutrients, and waste products can pass right through them, to and from all the cells in your body.
After the blood makes its pickups and deliveries, it needs to get back to the heart. It makes the return trip through the veins.
So, arteries carry blood away from the heart. Capillaries connect the arteries and veins carry the blood back home. And boy, is it a long trip! As it circulates your body, blood can travel through up to 100,000 kilometers of blood vessels. That's like circling the earth twice. A single drop of blood can leave the heart, make its delivery to the body's cells, and return to the heart in less than a minute. What's the rush? Blood needs to return to the heart.
It goes to the right side where it's sent to the lungs for more oxygen, the gas that cells need to burn nutrients for energy. Then the blood travels through the pulmonary vein to the left side of the heart. It gets pumped through the arteries back to the body cells to make fresh deliveries.